Hey folks, Reloading Bench back with you once again. This video, or at least the concept for this video, that's probably a better way of putting it, has been in the makings for about maybe 3 years or so. And part of that has to do with garage space as well as press expansion and what I want to do with this particular stand. So the history behind this mobile platform that's rock solid, and those are medical bed wheels, so that they have a double lock, so not only will they not rotate when they're locked, but they won't turn rather, but they won't rotate left or right, whereas a lot of wheels they will only lock in their rotation and not their left and right lateral movement. But I got this idea a long time ago off, and I think I've said this before, off of Ultimate Reloader Gavin tube. He had the equivalent of this 4x4 metal post, I think, bolted into his garage floor, that provided zero flex when you're pulling the handle down, as does this bench. There's just no flex whatsoever in the press. And once the wheels are locked, which they're not right now, there's no movement at all. So this was my first Hornady progressive press that I had. No bullet feeder, no case feeder, so this is all manual. In fact, the only thing I have is the lockout die, so that's common with my current presses. So this was straight up manual all the way. And I'll turn it around so you can see the other side. But the purpose of this video, now that things are coming to fruition, is this at the time was dedicated, and now it's probably as good a time as any, so let me go ahead and turn the press. This press, as you can see from the mount, is a 5x8. I think this is 3/16, maybe a little larger. I can't remember. I don't know at this exact moment. 5x8 plate that had some bolts welded into a cutout so that the press could be directly mounted. And again, just the Hornady press, and that's the focus of what we're doing. So if you can see what I did, I took the press, or rather the stand, before I mounted it, drilled a hole so that I could do primers, and then and I'll get it a little bit closer, but the camera's in the way, so maybe I'll just lower the camera right now. Hang on one sec. So years and years before Hornady came out with their spent primer catcher, which I've adapted to my other Hornady press, as well as created from scratch a very similar installation for the Dillon. With this stand, I ended up drilling a hole through, let's see if I can get that a little better, drilled a hole through the stand in the front, ran some tubing, and then let me switch the camera over again. So I have the tube coming out to a very robust, again, custom made primer catcher that still has a whole lot of primers in it, with magnetic base, so it'll stay wherever it's put. And then on this side of the press, I had another custom tube, or rather at least the bottom of the tube, so that I could hold all my primer tubes and primer feed and all that good stuff. And that's also a magnetic configuration, so that when I'm moving the press around, everything kind of stays in place. So and I also have a light. Let me move the camera so you can reposition that so you can see that. All right, so this is a battery USB rechargeable battery, and these this is a right line solution for the skylight or whatever the overhead light is called. I can't remember. And I normally have these wires, all of these wires, routed and tucked into this cavity because the base is hollow, or at least the column is hollow. And then I have a motion control activated switch so that this light, the skylight, would activate when I'm using the press, and when I'm not using the press it wouldn't activate. So that has worked great for a number of years. And then I also got rid of the Hornady bin catch that mounted under the press itself, and went with some more right line super solid solution, and also the double bin catch when I reposition the camera for the umpteenth time. And that's a better view of the double bin catch as well as the finished ammo. So from a standalone point of view, this press absolutely rocked, and there was no reason to do anything with it, and it's been great for me. A little grimy. I can't remember how many thousands of rounds it's produced. Flawless, but again, purely mechanical. So my concern was, or at least my hope was, after I get into different presses, what could I do to make this more universal along the lines of what Dan from Inline Fabrication has in terms of top plates. So the idea was to take, I'll show you on the bench. So the idea is to take the flush mount system that I don't have flush mounted, but what I've got on the corner of my bench, and apply that to this particular platform. So instead of making this a dedicated Hornady lock and load mobile stand, I would like to take this plate and somehow adapt this plate to this stand. So I reached out to Dan from Inline Fab and asked, is there something I could do? So over the last month, some emails, some phone calls, lots of measurements. I'm getting a custom plate, flush mount plate with a custom spacer, so that when I mount the presses, it won't hit the plate that's in there, or at least it won't hit this plate, which is covered in oak. And the idea behind the solution is to create this type of flexibility or adaptability on this mobile stand. So pretty close to getting, or at least receiving, what Dan has sent. I got the shipping confirmation, so that should be here in the next few days. And this will be part one of what I'll call the concept and what I'd like to do. And I think part two of the video will be showing what Dan has modified, and maybe part three of the video would be the Hornady press once again mounted, and then maybe a different press like the Dillon press. So that's the idea. I've got serious concerns because, and concerns are on my side, not Dan's, because getting exact measurements, I mean, this plate in its standard configuration isn't meant to go onto my plate on my mobile stand. So everything's going to be different in terms of hole location, size, because I've got half-inch bolts holding this press in, and these are not half-inch bolts. I think these are quarter-inch. So it's level of robustness is different to have this particular press locked in here like this, because this is, again, the movement right now is just because the wheels are not locked. but on flat surface, this thing is amazing. And I have to correct myself. It's not the skylight. It was another product from Inline Fab, which is it's their lighting system, but it's not the skylight. So I think this was this goes back so far as before the skylight, and I think there's two separate. I don't even think Inline Fabrication sells this anymore. In fact, I'm going to double check that. But this was a solution for lighting up the work area before the skylight, or if I'm even using the right term, before Inline Fab's product came out. So I don't know if I'm going to leave that here. Probably. I have to deal with the mess of wires, what I'm going to do with that as I make this more mobile, which means they'll have to be contained, as would the battery. Instead of being on the stand, it would have to be on the press, or maybe not. These are things I need to work out, but definitely more to come, and we'll see where this goes. This press needs a cleaning. Great functions, but yeah, it's a little grimy. Needs some cleaning. Needs a little TLC, and it will get the TLC as we progress through this series of changing this over to a universal mobile stand as opposed to a dedicated lock and load mobile stand. More to come.